Now to a huge blow ahead of this autumn's Rugby League World Cup due to take place in England. Holders Australia and New Zealand will not be competing due to player welfare and safety concerns. Sky Sports Rugby League expert Phil Clark says there's tremendous fear among the players about travelling to the UK.
I am tremendously disappointed, but not surprised. I think when the last time I looked, I think there's been over 120,000 deaths from COVID in this country and less than 1,000 in Australia. And the only reason I tell you that is because of the fear. There's almost a different approach to it. There's a tremendous fear from players in Australia and New Zealand and the staff about travelling to the UK. So despite a tremendous effort from the British government to support this Rugby League World Cup, it does appear now that it's in grave jeopardy.
Well, a statement from the World Cup organisers said this: Rugby League World Cup 2021. Note the disappointing statement made by Australia and New Zealand, which may have wide-ranging implications for International Rugby League. RLWC 2021 were informed at very short notice and will continue discussions with all stakeholders to agree on the best way forward. A further statement will be made in due course. Well, let's get more reaction to this story. Let's speak live, shall we, to RFL Chairman Simon Johnson. Simon, thank you for joining us on what must be a hugely difficult day. This news, how disappointing was that for you?
Morning, Rob. It's very, very disappointing indeed. The Rugby League World Cup organisers have bent over backwards to meet every single request relating to their players' safety during this tournament. They have been prepared to spend considerable resources in order to do so. Our government has fully supported them. They have given assurance after assurance after assurance. And therefore, for this decision to be made today, I've described it as a selfish and parochial decision, because at the same time in July, when they are committing not to play in a tournament in October, athletes from those countries are participating in the Tokyo Olympic Games. Their rugby union colleagues are preparing to play in England in October. And I think it is very, very difficult for players, men's, women's, and especially wheelchair players, who at the peak of their career want to play at the pinnacle of international sport, to be told by their leaders that they can't participate in a tournament when they can see their counterparts from other sports with no restrictions travelling to exactly the same parts of the world and other parts of the world which also have COVID with no apparent restrictions. I think that is a very difficult situation, and I understand why a number of players in Australia and New Zealand are very upset with this decision.
So those players are upset. Is there any way that you can help those players who may want to still play in this tournament then?
Well, we have to decide what we're going to do. The Rugby League World Cup board will meet to discuss this. But in particular, the people that I am really feeling sorry for with this decision today are the women rugby league players and the wheelchair rugby league players. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to grow the women's game and the wheelchair game. The BBC was going to show over 30 matches from all three tournaments. And now the organisers in the governing bodies in Australia and New Zealand are going to have to say to their athletes that this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to grow their sport and to play at the pinnacle of their sport has been taken away from them. And the irony is not lost on me, because yesterday the International Olympic Committee awarded the 2032 Olympic Games to Brisbane in Australia. So a country which says that it is doing so much for women's and disability sport has, with this decision, pulled the rug out from underneath the growth of women's and wheelchair rugby league.
I'm trying to get a sense of what your overwhelming emotion is here. I feel the frustration. And do I feel anger as well then?
Yes, we've been talking to the Australians and the New Zealand leadership for months and months and months. We have given every assurance that they asked for. And that's why I think that this is a parochial and selfish decision. They have chosen to ignore the assurances that we have consistently given them. And I think what they've done is that they have decided that protecting their club game is more important to them than helping to grow and promote international rugby league, including the women's and the wheelchair game. So this is a poor decision. It has generated considerable anger, and to be honest, the organisers now have a very big decision as to what they choose to do about this World Cup this autumn.
So where do you feel we go from here? There is the Football World Cup next year, and I would guess you don't want to be up competing against that. So how does this all get resolved?
Well, this year was perfect for 3 international tournaments to be given the maximum profile. It's a quiet sporting autumn. The BBC was able to give us a huge amount of coverage. We've got access to Premier League stadiums in Newcastle, Leeds, Liverpool, Manchester, and so on. In autumn next year, you will have just had the Commonwealth Games. You've got the FIFA World Cup in Qatar overlapping. We don't know whether those stadiums will be available. And we're also pretty sure that the level of coverage that the BBC is giving us this year won't be available. So the decision taken by the Australians is purely a parochial decision. And I'm afraid that it will be very, very difficult for British fans, for all those thousands, hundreds of thousands of fans who have bought tickets for this World Cup, to understand why rugby league teams from Australia and New Zealand are not coming to England in October, when they'll be able to watch the Australian rugby union teams playing here, and when they'll have just seen Australian and New Zealand athletes participating in the Olympics, and when we in the UK will be having full stadiums for most sporting events. I think come October, this will be a very, very difficult decision for people to understand.
And then obviously there is the financial implications. What is the impact of all of this?
Well, this tournament was intended to be, and is intended to be, one that provides a springboard for the sport. Clearly, if it's not going to happen this year, we can't sell all our tickets, then it will be there will be significant financial impact. If it were to move, there would also be an impact, and of course there is the possibility that it may not be able to go ahead at all, which would have a devastating financial impact. So I think that the opportunity here, not just are we missing a huge opportunity, but I think that Australia and New Zealand, by their decision today, have indicated that international rugby league assurances are not ones that they're prepared to accept. And that for me is the real problem, that we have been bending over backwards to provide them assurance that the tournament will be safe, both on the travelling to it, during it, and coming back from it. And that the colleagues in Australia and New Zealand have chosen to disregard those assurances and to make a decision that is not consistent with what other federations in Australia and New Zealand are currently doing.
I hear the discrepancy. Simon, thank you.